You've heard the expression, been there, done that, and that's why we have our guest today, Jessica Pettit. Good evening, or good morning, or whenever you're watching this. I'm going back to my old TV days. Thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm your host, Randall Carlisle. Nicole Slack is our co-host. I'd be like my co-anchor, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have your makeup on and all that?
I'm sorry. I'm going to disappoint you.
And as I said, our guest is Jessica Pettit. And so many of the people that we have on, Jessica, and I ask them, and most of them are in recovery, and I say, when did this whole thing start for you? And they really almost all talk about, and that's when my alcoholism started. I started drinking when I was, I think, 13. And a lot of them say 13, 14, in that area. You were a late bloomer, right?
Yeah, I want to say 34.
Yeah, that's very unusual.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So you work in the Odyssey House adolescent program, and that's really, when I hear these stories, I sit there thinking, God, if we could have only had that. I wish I would have gone through a program like that so I wouldn't have been a functional alcoholic for 4 decades, you know. And so you get to work with these kids at an age that's very important. But you also went through the program when you were that age, right?
Yes, I did.
What were the circumstances that you came through the adolescent program? Where were you at in life?
Well, I can relate to you because I was 14 when I started using.
See, isn't that interesting?
Well, it started because it started obviously with marijuana. It was a gateway for me, drinking, and then it led to harder drugs like heroin and cocaine. And when I got to be 15 years old, I completely had quit going to school. That was like the triggering event.
You were doing heroin and cocaine back at 15?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And I had gotten put in the court system for not going to school and basically disobeying my parents. I had taken my car before I had a license, and I got sent to a place where they did an observation and assessment, and they assessed me to go to Odyssey House. So
I'm sure you were thrilled at the time, right?
No, I was planning on running. I was like, no, I will not go there. Absolutely not.
So you had to come to the program.
Yes, I was court ordered.
And what
From Utah? Yes.
What was it like when you first came in? You wanted to hate it, right?
Oh, I hated it. Absolutely. It was hard. I was in my old behaviors. I had never been called out on things. I didn't really understand it. I was being held accountable. I was like, but isn't this snitching? I didn't understand what was happening there. It was very hard. It took me 13 months to graduate when it was about a 6-month program at the time.
So you were a slow learner in the program.
Yeah.
And were you a rebel at the time?
I think you could say that. It took me, I had got up on the levels, went back down a few times, but I learned to dust myself off and eventually graduated and became a leader, learning a lot from the program. But obviously, I thought that the answer to getting out of the program was, I'm going to be sober for the rest of my life. So I lied. I was dishonest because at that point in my life, I was being forced to be in the program. And I didn't know if I wanted to be clean at that time in my life. And so I lied. And then when I got out, it took me 3 months before I relapsed.
And how long did that last then?
Well, the relapses went on and on until a few years ago is when I came to sobriety.
And how'd you finally become permanently sober?
Well, the way I like to look at my recovery is I learned all the tools when I was in Odyssey House, but I didn't have a foundation. My foundation for me is my faith. So, I came to God, I surrendered, and that's what changed my life. And then I was able to build my life off of that foundation. It's a firm foundation for me.
How did you establish your relationship with God? Because at the time you were doing heroin and whatever, and being a rebel and not going to school, you didn't have a good relationship with God.
No. And it's So like we're rewinding almost 20 years or fast forwarding to like almost 20 years later. And it's by that time, it's like my spirit was so sick. I'm stealing from my family. I'm hurting my daughter. I'm hurting everybody. I had like given every part of myself to my addiction to where there was nothing left to give, but I was taking from everybody else. I mean, it's like I had theft charges. I had been to jail. I just was like a disappointment to myself, to my family. I had given about every piece of myself. And finally, there was nothing left. And I just knew that something had to change. I had no morals. I had no values. One day I cried out to God. I found some videos on YouTube. And I remember coming to a realization for me, it was that Jesus is God. And that's when things changed. Suddenly I had like this different, I don't know how you would put it. Like I suddenly like had like conviction of what I was doing was wrong. And I cried out to God for help. And I just gave it all to him. I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. And I completely changed my life. I didn't have any withdrawals. I didn't have like these, because I was doing meth and I would have these crashes and everything. But it was weird because all of a sudden I'm energized. I'm like a new person. I'm happy. It was completely different.
When you were at that stage where this metamorphosis happened, were you in jail? Were you? I mean, where were? Do you remember at the time where you were and how it happened?
Yeah. So I was at my apartment, and like I said, I was just watching some YouTube videos. I remember after being in Odyssey and graduating, they had sent me to a different program in Iowa where I was around some people that were like Christian and everything. I remember peace and happiness being around them. So I always kind of like remembered that. And after being on a binge and being up, and it just, I started watching some videos on YouTube, and it started speaking to me, to my heart. And that's where I just cried out to God and asked, I'm going to give this all to you, and trusted in him. And here I am.
Wow. Now, and when I said been there, done that, you're back working in the adolescent program that you were involved in, 20 years ago?
Yes, I made a full circle.
I guess.
Yes.
What's that? What was the program in the physical building it's in now?
Yes.
What was it like returning? I mean, what were your feelings?
Well, it used to be open door, and now it's a
Right.
locked facility. So that was the first change. I'm like, whoa. And, the building's a little bit different, but it's all the same. There's, obviously some remodeling and stuff, but it was really cool. It was like, whoa, like I felt almost at home.
When you walked in and when you got hired for this job, what were your feelings? Like, were you scared? Was it like, what's it going to be like?
No, I was like, I got this. I'm a graduate. I know this program. I have lived this. I can look these kids in the eye and say, I know what you are going through, because literally this was my bed over here in this room. So I get what you're going through.
Wow.
Do you think that gives you a better way to connect with them? Or do you think it does the opposite of like,
Oh, no.
you're fine?
I feel like it gave me, I was able to establish rapport and trust early on. From like when I started working, I felt literally at home. It was very easy to talk to the clients, to relate to them, and to get trust.
Yeah.
What are your interactions with them? Do you, like when you first meet them, when they come in, do you tell them right off, well, I was a client here and now I'm back? Or what do you do?
Well, and it depends on the situation. But when I see that there is like, especially when they're in intake and they're like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't think I can do this. I'm like, well, there's a fun fact that you want to know is that I have done this. I was here and this was my room over here. And it's able to let them know that it's possible and that I do know what they're going through. Because I know that sometimes like when you feel like nobody knows what I'm going through, nobody understands me, but I do, I get it.
which is true. I think most God, it was so long ago when I was a teenager, but I think most teenagers think nobody understands them, right?
Right. Uniqueness.
Yeah. And when there's similar traits with all of them, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so you do build a trust. It's the same thing. Like when I'm talking to some of our adult clients, and it's like, I share the fact that I was a functional alcoholic for decades, and how long I've been in recovery, and it does sort of create some credibility, and that's why, if you think about it, why the Odyssey program or a lot of treatment programs work, because you have your peers who are also in recovery. That's important, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It gives you a unique perspective on things.
What was it when you were? Did you grow up? I mean, you sound like you're extremely religious now. And I asked you ahead of the podcast not to say the F word, and you said, I never swear. So what were you like growing up, and where was your head at like 14 when you were acting out?
Okay, and I have to clarify something. I don't consider myself religious, actually. I just have faith in God. Like, I don't believe, for me, like, I know it's...
I would call that religious.
Well,
but
that's, I have faith. So
you don't go to church every Sunday? Or?
No, I don't. I actually work on Sundays.
And are you a member of an organized religion?
I do, yeah, Christianity, but...
Well, that's a general term, but...
Right.
Okay. So my question was, did you grow up in a religious family, and where was your head in terms of stuff like God and Christ and that kind of stuff when you were acting out?
Okay. Well, my family, they were Mormon. And so, and they weren't very active is how you would say it. And I felt like there was a lot of rules and regulations. And for me, it just... it wasn't anything that was like huge in my family. We knew of God, but it wasn't anything that we actively went to or anything.
You bring up I won't call it religious. I'll call it your faith. Do you bring that up when you're discussing things with the kids in your program?
I like for them to have their own journeys, but actually, on Sundays, I do a Bible study for the clients that would like to do that also are interested in that. It's voluntary. And so the ones that do want to look at the Bible or talk about that stuff, like they attend. So
when you see the problems kids are facing, what do you think is the primary cause? I realize it's such a big question, but the primary cause of so many kids that seem to be, I don't know, disassociated with society and who are rebelling and through things like substance use and increasing mental health problems. Why do you see that happening now?
That's a good question. I think there's a range of things that it can be. There's mental health, it's the family situation, and I think values, morals, things. It's like a range of things, and also I think a lot of these kids, they just have had hard lives growing up, and the society now, it's more acceptable for like drugs and for things of that nature. Marijuana is now legal and it's more accessible. So I think it's society.
What about technology? In other words, when kids come into your program, they've got to give up their cell phones, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that must be a real problem for them.
And they're not allowed to do social media, even on their passes. And that's huge. I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, that's a big part of it is social media. And for myself, I'm not on social media. Because,
really?
When I got sober, I knew that is like a way, like if you want to find something on social media as drugs and things, it's really easy. And so I haven't gone back on it myself.
do they know what you're part of the admission process? Do you make it very clear when they're coming in that they can't use their cell phones?
Deceivingly clear.
Yeah.
Need them to come, but we have it in the information we send out. It's in there. We do tell the parents, but we're not drilling it home because sometimes that could be a factor in the kid running from the facility before they even get in. So we are clear and honest. We don't hide things. But
you don't say, number one, you can't use your cell phone.
Because if that's going to stop a kid from getting the care that he needs, maybe
Right.
he needs to hear that when he's in the building. But I never lie. So it's always mentioned.
A lot of I don't know if it's just the people we've had on the podcast, but an awful lot of them say that their parents were dealt with addiction or were dealers or what we had someone on recently whose dad was a meth cook and dealer, and his dad allowed him to start doing meth at 11 and encouraged him to sell.
Yeah, that's common. It is. A lot of these kids, it's their parents have done it or did it with them. And yeah, it's common.
The parents can be a lot of the issues when we're trying to get them into treatment and trying to get them the help that they need. Sometimes when they're in states, when the state's the one recommending them to come in, it will be that the parents are the problem.
Well, if I'm a drug dealer and I have my son and I'm encouraging him and I'm a meth cook and somebody tells me that my son has to go to treatment for help for doing that, I can see how,
Yeah.
But you guys you involve families, once a week with the kids, some family therapy?
It varies, but yeah, there's family therapy. And it seems like, it's pretty often, but it's depending on the therapist and everything. And that can be hard for some of the kids. It can. And it's, we take them on breaks. We talk about things, and some of them open up about things going on. Some of them choose to only talk to their therapist about it. But
what's the atmosphere? I mean, I've spoken to groups at the adolescent house, and we cook a meal for them around the holiday season and stuff like that. It seems like the kids get along pretty well. What is that generally true, or you're smiling like not really?
well, I mean, they're in a small area together. The boys, they do okay with each other. If the girls, it's a lot of cattiness, a lot of little problems. I mean, it's basically the same thing as when you're in high school or junior high. I mean, gossip, drama, small things like that can get pretty big when you're in a small quarters together.
How do you prevent stuff like that from happening?
Have to put out fires, be a peacekeeper, take them on breaks, take them to talk, do conflict.
Can't prevent that.
No, you can't. But yeah, I mean, it's do conflict resolution, encourage them to use the process that we provide them with. And a lot of times I see a lot of things that help, and then there are some that it's harder.
There are we've filmed and we've done stories on several of your graduations. There are kids who are the majority are successful in your program. What has always struck? I've worked at Odyssey for 8 years now, and what I had trouble dealing with initially was some of the clients that I'd come in contact with who seemed like they were just going to set the world on fire and were going to be so successful. And then I'd find out that they left against clinical advice, or a month or two later, they've died of an overdose. Right. And it's heartbreaking, and it's really hard to tell who's going to succeed and who's not.
Right. And like I said, it's hard because I don't think that maybe there's one that since I've been there, that wanted to be there voluntarily. I mean, your adolescents, the majority of them are court ordered or their parents have put them there. So chances are they don't want to be there and may not even want to change. And so I tell them, we're going to give you the skills, and it's up to you when you get out of here if you're going to use those or not. So.
Then did I hear you say you have a daughter?
I do. Yeah.
How old is she now?
She is almost 15.
So you're dealing with teenagers at work and at home.
Yeah. Well, this job has actually improved my relationship with my daughter.
How so?
Okay, so my addiction obviously caused a lot of issues for my family, for my relationship with my daughter. And since coming to sobriety, I'm trying to rebuild that relationship. Well, working with adolescents every day, it has given me like so much more confidence. I'm dealing with things. I'm using words that they use. I'm like low key, they always say, and things. And I just, I feel like I'm able to relate to her more. And it's like my confidence has just increased.
What does she say about your addiction?
She doesn't say a lot. I know she's happy that I've changed my life.
Obviously.
And she says she thinks my job seems like a lot of fun.
Would you call it fun?
I love my job. I do. I think it's amazing. It's rewarding, and being able to give back and come and work with these kids that I can relate to. And who would have ever thought that I could find a job that my addiction and the stuff that I went for actually qualifies me? It's like amazing. It's just mind blowing.
And you certainly didn't, at the time, grow up thinking, God, I want to come back here someday and work here.
Actually, I did. I was like, maybe one day I think this would be cool if I came back here.
Really?
I did, yes.
Where you fulfilled that?
Yes, but at the time I was thinking of like maybe being a therapist or something, and that's something I've even been thinking of, maybe like going back to school. And I know Odyssey supports their staff in getting schooling.
Sure.
So.
Financially.
Yes. Yeah.
What? What's been your experience dealing with the kids?
My first time ever going in that house, I walked up to, I was just doing something, and a girl walked up to me and she was like, "What's your DOC, drug of choice?" I was like, "Alcohol." And she was like, "Oh." I was like, "I'm sorry." And then I just looked at the staff that worked there, and I was like, "I admire you guys so much. I don't even know how to talk to them. And they're such nice kids, but they've been through a lot." So I think for me, it's separating the stuff that I've read and in the clinical documentation and everything we've gone through, and then getting to meet them in person, and then having to separate that and just really try to, and they're angry. So there's just this whole dynamic that happens when I do meet them, is separating it and then getting to know them, and then realizing that they're being put there against their will, and then seeing them a week later and they're so happy and working on things. So it's a roller coaster when you go to your facility.
Right.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And it's
been
like
through so much.
When you see one of them, and it's like you see them come in and they are struggling with those things. And when you see things finally start to click, it's so amazing. It's just the biggest reward, and it's just being there to it's their journey, and it's what they choose to believe and what they choose to do, and seeing them learn those skills and process things. It's really cool.
Is there can you generalize about a time frame as to how long it takes before you see that light come on in their eyes?
It's different for all of
every
them.
Kid.
But I mean, if I had to give an estimate, I would say sometimes that magic thing happens from 2 weeks to a month. Some longer, but
also, it's so fun to watch them come full circle, because when I go to the graduations, we had a girl that she was like, "I've just wasted so many years," and I think she was 15. And I was like, "Oh God, if I could do that at your age and waste 2 years." And she's just like, "I've just lost so much." And she has, and I'm not taking away from the fact that she probably lost a lot of time with her family and growing up time, but just watching them grow and learn. And this girl was so feisty when she first came in and was like, "I'm not doing this." And then having her be like, "My mom and dad are working on communication that they need to work on. I'm working on the communication I need to work on." And to watch it all come full circle is just wild. I love it.
That sounds very adult towards the end, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
She grew so much. And for her to be like, "My parents have some stuff to work on," instead of just hating them.
Well, if you use the word communication, if you think about it, probably most of the kids who come in are pretty poor at communication with each other and with an adult.
It comes out in different ways too. And, sometimes it's behavioral, sometimes it's different.
And part of the process I found when you go through programs, for myself anyway, was finally coming clean about your own feelings and your own sense of shame and guilt and whatever you're feeling inside that you just don't normally just sit down and share with someone else, but you have to if you want a therapeutic program to work. And so that must be really hard for kids. I mean, do you remember you have a 15-year-old daughter. Is she pretty good at communicating?
Well,
See, I mean,
conflict resolution, it's hard. It is. But it's like, and when you have been in treatment and you work in treatment, it's like about these I feel statements and about being defensive and the encounter process. And it's like, I even try to teach her some of these things that I learn. And
I think that they think they know how to communicate and they think they know how to process things. And so when they're coming in, because obviously, in your adolescence, everything.
well, that's true.
So
It's your smartest period in life.
right. And they just think they know so much. And so I think it would take a lot and really compassionate, caring people to teach them that, like, yes, you are communicating, but that's not good communication. And yes, you are telling me your feelings, but are you really getting to the core of it? And so when I think of the adolescents, I just think of all the things that they think they know.
Have you ever do you get to a point ever where you get so frustrated you want to scream?
when I was new, I remember there was one moment when I felt like literally walking out the door. I was a newer staff and I was by myself that day. We were short staffed. And I remember the girls were wandering down because the boys and girls are not allowed to interact except for in a group setting and stuff. And the girls were wandering down the whole hall and the boys were wandering. And I was just really overwhelmed. And one of the girls said, "What the F, bro?" And the other girl thought she called her a hoe. And so it was all of this yelling. And I just remember thinking, now I can see why people would walk out. And literally the next week when something like that was happening, the shift lead, Jeremy, he just shut the door. And I'm thinking, why didn't I think of doing that? Just shutting the door. You learn these things that just work. I don't know why. I mean, the door is easy to open, but.
Right. Huh. And so you handle it better now. So you don't have the frustrations now that you had when you first started.
There's challenging days, but no, not that like that. I feel like we have a pretty good team right now. I learn a lot from my upper management, from my shift lead, and I feel like we work pretty good together. I mean, there's days obviously that one of the kids that's just hard to work with, or they don't want to listen and they're not listening to prompts, or they want to argue with you. We have these hours that we take and everything. And it's no, you're taking my hour. Well, rules are rules.
Do they try to play mom off of dad and staff off of staff? And do they try to play you guys?
Yeah. Yeah. If, say, you take their hour, then it's they'll go to the next step. Can I talk to you? And that they are going and venting about you to them. Or, yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Jessica, thank you for sharing your story and thank you for all the good work you do at our adolescent house. Just think you're shaping future wonderful adults, right?
Yes, absolutely. They're great kids. I love working there. It's a great job, and I'm just blessed to be back and to be able to give back.
Thank you for sharing. Mm-hmm. Good to see you, Nicole.
You too.
Thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.